welcome back and good morning once again. This is the Morning Cafe on TV47. My name is Fred Indimuli. It's time for State of the Nation, a discussion around the big headlines, not just in the dailies, on our TV sets as well, plus what we've been talking about this entire week. This morning we're privileged to have in studio Mwalimu Wilson Sossion, who has served as a Secretary General of the KNUT, that's the National Union for Teachers, and also as a member of the National Assembly. With him is Mesha Kodede, a political commentator. Karibuni sana, gentlemen. We're hoping to be joined by at least two more panelists so that we may have an even bigger conversation. Of course, the biggest news today and the man of the moment is none other than the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who's expected to unveil his new party today, and we'll come to that conversation. But before that, there has been a bigger conversation this entire week since Monday when President William Ruto, while hosting a visiting dignitary, the President of Finland, was asked a question about the abductions of young Kenyans, and he made a statement which generated a lot of conversation. That story continues. Now, there's a story on page three of the Daily Nation. When were they released? Gen Z protesters' mothers now ask Ruto. That's a big question. This story has also been highlighted on the front page. It is one of the stories that we've been working on here at TV47 as well. Let's watch it.
All the people who disappeared who were abducted in what you said, all of them have been brought back to their families and to their homes.
It is a statement that has been widely perceived by some Kenyans and civil society groups as an implicit admission of government involvement in the abduction witnessed in recent times. And Wednesday, the president's men came forth to defend him, with the CS for Interior stressing that the president's statement was a commitment to ending abductions, not an admission of guilt.
Saying we have stopped does not mean we were doing. And I think it's very unfortunate that the president has been, and the way it has always been twisted when he says anything he says.
As of early 2025, about 82 people had been abducted or forcibly disappeared in Kenya since the Gen Z protest began in June 2024.
The context within which the president spoke about abductions is the same context he speaks about all crimes. The same way he has directed that we must deal with OLF, we must deal with drugs, we must deal with the illegal mining, is the same way he said we must deal with all elements related to abduction.
The Kenya Human Rights Commission reports that 29 people abducted in June remain missing, with no arrests made of those responsible. The Independent Policing Oversight Authority has called for a public inquiry into the recent wave of abductions across Kenya, citing a disturbing pattern of rights violations and organized operations behind the kidnappings. A section of Kenyans and civil groups have put the blame on police. However, the Inspector General of Police denies any involvement. IPOA continues to investigate the cases but has yet to identify the perpetrators. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Yes, the conversation has definitely moved. There appears to have been a lot of silence with regard to this. Now IPOA finally says that probably we should go the Commission of Inquiry way. Let's start with you, Meshach. It's almost a year since this thing happened on June 25th last year. More than a year later, we seem to have treated this whole issue very casually. Nothing substantive has come out of any proper investigation. We seem to have swept a lot of this under the carpet. Then the president comes out and gives a very casual statement that everyone has gone back to their homes. Should we be a bit more serious in dealing with this so as to achieve some closure?
Yeah, thank you, Fred. I think first it was unfortunate that we got to where we got a year ago, a time like this, moving towards the June 25th. I don't think it was intentional for any Kenyan to see the country get to where it was, but given the circumstances that were surrounding the issues of taxes around that time, I think first the government probably didn't see that we were going to get to where we were, and that is the reason why things were treated casually until it was June 25th and things were looking really bad. And then now they were trying to retract and probably give it a new approach, which led us to having the whole cabinet going home and things like that until now. But again, it is now even more unfortunate that we are 1 year later and nothing substantive in terms of investigations has come to the table before Kenyans. And it is a big question that every Kenyan is now asking, that unfortunately we lost a member of parliament in the recent past, and things really seem to be moving so fast. And this is the question that now bogs the mind of Kenyans, that are some lives more sacred than others? Are we having the lives that are supposed to be really, really guarded, and others which do not matter? And then comes the question. I think I have a different opinion, Fred, with the question about the comment of the president during the state visit of the Finnish president. I personally think whether people were abducted through government machineries or people who are not known to government, the question is right at the doorstep of government, because it is the president and the entire government that takes oath that they will keep our lives and property safe. So I think the question might have been either misconstrued or it is right. Number one, if the government did not participate in abducting any Kenyan whatsoever, they are still supposed to give the answers about who actually abducted Kenyans. If the government did, they are still supposed to give the answer, where are these people? So if the question went to the president and the president said, this is what has happened, for me, the problem is not that he said, this is what has happened. The problem is, where is his data coming from, and is it really verified? Because the Kenya Human Rights Commission are telling us a slightly different thing. Other civil societies are telling us a little bit different thing from what the position the president has taken. So for me, the problem is not the answer that people have gone back. I don't want to take it to the route where many people have taken it, that, okay, you knew who the abductors were or the government abducted. For me, either whether the government didn't abduct, they are still the ones to answer that question. Where are the Kenyans you took oath that you will keep their lives safe and property? So the question either way will still go to the president. Mm-hmm. So for me, the accuracy of the answer is where we should have a problem. That while Mr. President is telling us that everybody has gone back home, where is he getting his facts? And where are the Kenya Human Rights Commission getting their facts, and other civil society groups?
Because the issue is that since last year, Bwana Sosion, we've not had any substantive report, either from the president, any government agency, or even the houses of legislation on this matter. If we may forget the president for a bit, even the houses of legislation, parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate, they were the ones that were attacked on that day during the protests. A lot of the shooting happened within the precincts of parliament. The fact that they've not found it fit to even institute a probe through even the committees concerned with internal security or both in both houses, a year later, that says a lot. Why the reluctance?
Those are your hard questions, but I think on the flip side of it, we must take the president's communication very seriously as a country. And if you look at the records on human rights with the regime of President William Ruto, I think he has done extremely well, better than some of the previous regimes. You know, we had several bodies in Rivayala and in other parts of the country. We never had Kenya Human Rights Commission generate reports and avail data.
They did generate. Haki Africa generated a report.
Did they? And let's be clear. The president made a commitment, and it is part of the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, that there will never be extrajudicial killings in the country. And when the president made a commitment that the Kenyans who may have been abducted and whoever they were abducting, that business will have to end, and it actually ended. That means the security infrastructure was activated properly to secure all Kenyans. And that should be good news to Kenyans. The president made his statement, he made a commitment, and I'm sure the security apparatus did its job. And the Kenyans who were said to have been abducted, all of them returned, we saw in full view. You guys reported.
We reported that they had all been returned?
You reported.
What we are reporting right now is that the Kenya says there are still people who are missing.
Therefore, we'll get into that. I'll get into that. So the progress made to secure Kenyans and to stop any extrajudicial killings is commendable. The president has lived up to his commitment, and the statement that he made when with the Finnish president is not a new statement, it's the same one, and I think he's living up to it. And now the audit with Kenya Human Rights Commission, the reports that they still have, the missing persons according to their data, I don't think government is closed from any further consultations and any further engagement to ensure that really, if there are missing persons, then they should be accounted for.
Yes, and you totally.
I don't think anybody.
You totally ignored my question.
I don't think anybody sane in this country, in government and outside government, would not like to ensure that there is accountability on this.
But Asuncion, you totally ignored my question. I asked you not about the president. I even asked you to ignore the president for a bit and focus on the Houses of Parliament, which were actually at the center of these protests. And that's where many people died. That a year later, none of the committees involved in security matters found it fit to even institute a probe on what happened.
And I want you to ask all the questions. If we are to ask the questions and the activities of 25th of June 2021, those were not ordinary occurrences. I've led demonstrations, and I know what demonstration means. Demonstrations and picketing is not lawlessness. It is not invasion of constitutional buildings and entities. And whatever happened on 25th of June was serious desecration of independent institutions.
Hence my question. Why haven't we instituted a probe?
We should be able to ask our own questions. What happens with the Kenya Police Service? Where were they? Why didn't they control the demonstrators so that we do not witness pulling down offenses? That's a criminal offense. Okay. Invasion,
my question.
Vandalizing property inside Parliament, inside the Supreme Court. It is not what demonstrations is all about. And therefore the question is, was there sabotage from the Kenya Police Service?
Okay.
Where were the uniformed GSU who were very common in Parliament that particular day? They were not there. No, we must. There are hard questions that we must be able to ask.
After the fact.
So that, Fred, you don't cherry pick.
Okay.
What is
Fred,
emotional
I ask a question,
and what is
give me an
good
answer,
for political expediency.
I've asked a direct question.
Fred, I think Honorable Session is not being honest with you on your question. And I don't think your question is too difficult either to answer. The question is, Parliament represents the people. And the people went to Parliament even before that such things started occurring. And after that, 1 year later, your question is, what has Parliament done based on their role as representative of the people to even try to find out that this is what exactly happened? What Honorable Session is talking about is what we probably as the people would have expected Parliament to tell us in your investigation as a House of Representative of people. What did you find out happened? So if there was sabotage from police, we need to see evidence from either a committee instituted by Parliament to investigate what happened to the people they are representing. So probably, Honorable Sossion, Parliament should have told us by evidence after their investigation, by now 1 year later, that this is actually what happened. Either police sabotaged, or this is what happened, or that is what happened. But so far, 1 year later, we don't have any evidence based on any investigation. So we leave police to investigate themselves and come and tell us, which they will never. Then Parliament is a house where I have a member of Parliament representing me, and I was on the street, and I saw what happened. Now, the House of Representatives needed to tell us. So we would have a variety of reports. Either the executive is telling us this, the story is corroborating with the story of Parliament and maybe human rights. And so Kenyans would say, based on all these 3-4 reports, we think this is where the truth is. And then we leave the matter to rest. But if we come back 1 year later and we are still saying something might have happened, either the police might have sabotaged the process, that's now funny. We need to know for now, because we're going up for another finance bill, and we never know, who knows, anything might happen again, and we are still piling up things. So I think your question to me makes sense. The House of Representatives knows the people they represent were injured, others were maimed, some were killed. What do they say 1 year later?
Exactly. Allow me to welcome to the panel Arnold Maliba. Maliba is a party leader, Progress Plus Alliance. Good morning, Arnold. Karibu sana. Now, we're just talking about this issue of the abductions. The president's statement earlier this week, which appeared very casual, has ignited debate. And now we're seeing, days later, IPOA, which is the Independent Police Oversight Authority, now suggesting that probably we should institute a commission of inquiry to investigate what happened last year. This is 1 year later. Parliamentarians were part of those people who were subjects of the protests. The protesters were marching to Parliament, not to any other place. They breached the precincts of Parliament. Yet Parliament has not found it fit to even probe what happened. Why did they breach the precincts of Parliament? Do you find it funny that we're treating that issue a bit too casually?
I do not find it funny. I actually find it quite, it's a decisive choice by Parliament. Parliament has deliberately chosen to try and sweep this issue under the carpet, because they are mismanaging the after 25th June the same way they mismanaged the before. Because literally everybody saw this was going to happen. Both the intelligence, even people who are doing analysis, they actually saw that the country was going in the wrong direction. You could tell that we weren't headed to the right direction. But what did the state do? The state ignored, literally allowed this thing to pan out to exactly what we saw. But then looking at what the president has said so far, I'm not really looking forward to anything to come out of it, because if you remember, on 25th December 2024, the president speaking in Homa Bay, after Raila had actually asked the president on the issue of abductions, that's last year, he promised and said that abductions will end. There were still several incidences that were reported after that. So the president and the president has got a very strenuous relationship with truth. I also do not expect, and that is why I'm actually seeing the reports that are coming up, when now people are actually questioning, he says that all of them were returned home, but records out there still show that there are very many young people that are missing. Also, we are talking about when he speaks that all of them were returned. He was never specific. Were they returned in body bags, or were they returned walking? A few we saw released. A few, of course, were found dead. So, and he has not answered who was actually doing that. So it's something that the state has allowed to actually just pan out. And they hope. This, by the way, is actually strategic scare. If you might check out, you'll realize that young people, including the Gen Zs, are not so enthusiastic of coming out. So the whole violence meted on these young people was to do two things, of course, if you had to simplify it. Number one, to sell a little fear of God, and number two, to actually give them a little testing of what the terror of the devil would be. So these young people are actually very traumatized. They will speak, but as much as they can actually do is to talk online. No one is actually willing to step out. And the state actually feels that they've done well. Unfortunately, what they don't know is that movements mutate. Today, what they saw last year as a Gen Z movement, people now see the consequences of actually coming out to the street. And the people that will come out next might actually be very different. By the way, Parliament was already breached. They got inside, they got to the chamber. That is the holy of holies of Parliament. So you do not expect that anyone who comes out next will actually be interested with going to Parliament. That particular objective for the people who wanted to get there already made that. So the other objective they pick is actually for all of us to guess. But Parliament has already been breached, and therefore I do not think that they're going there. So Parliament and Honorable Millie Mabona, who is actually a ranking member, she's been in Parliament for long. In the last discussion, in the wake of the Blood Parliament discussion by, or rather the documentary by BBC, she told Parliament why, she asked her colleagues, why haven't we even set up an ad hoc committee? So that, because this particular issue has got cross-cutting levels, so you're not going to limit it to the specific security in the administration committee. You will need an ad hoc committee to specifically come up with something on this. But it looks like the leadership of Parliament probably is in sync with the executive, and they do not want to get to the root of this issue for furtherance of what they think is deterrence by violence. That in and of itself is not wise, and it's not safe. We've mismanaged this thing, we continue to mismanage it, and we want to actually do a lot of English and a lot of rationalizing around this issue. When it comes to human rights, let us not normalize, like I've seen Mheshimiwa do here, let us not try and rationalize. Parliament is a people's home. The highest agency, when you look at Parliament, you are looking at a people who have gathered. So if we kill young people because they ate rice in Parliament, if we kill young people because they went to complain about the cost of living, to complain about a finance bill that everybody has been complaining about. And we have seen even on video that people were shot running away. As in, there is no way of rationalizing that. But the good thing I really concur with Mheshimiwa here is that there are some questions, unfortunately, only Parliament can actually help us get answers to. Number one, why did the Nairobi command collapse? Those questions must be answered. On that day, the IC3...
Which is the best route towards getting those answers? Because if Parliament has not done anything till now...
Number one, Parliament, or rather the National Police Service itself has got an internal affairs unit. That in and of itself, at command level, should actually, probably they did and they spoke to themselves. That was not for public sharing. Then IPOA has to wait until there is a documentary by a foreign agency, and then they are responding to it. But do you know what is callous? Is KDF telling us that they are waiting for IPOA to talk to them, that IPOA has not spoken to them? You know, where does IPOA get the legal standing to even engage KDF? Yes. So when the spokesmanship of KDF tells us that IPOA has not spoken to them, when we know the mandate of IPOA and how it will actually... IPOA has no space, has no place where it will actually reach out to KDF. Only Parliament will do that. So the people at KDF also think that the rest of us are dead from the neck upwards, as in we do not know how these things are done. That was an answer.
IPOA now suggests that we should institute a commission of inquiry into this matter. Do you agree that that is the best way to actually unearth all these answers to all these questions that we have? Bwana Sosion.
You ask me straight-jacket questions of yes or no. And you've asked me this question before, and even here before.
And I still don't have an answer from you, Bwana Sosion. You seem to be avoiding my questions and answering your own.
I stated that Parliament should have tabled a report on the occurrences of 25th of June. That mandate rests with Parliament. None of us is a parliamentarian, neither you, but you as a media, you are better placed to ask the Speaker, or to ask Parliament why they've not done, because this is the first time since independence that Parliament was breached in a manner that is so disturbing. It is not something that will go away. Even as we get to the 25th of June, the memories and reflections and hard questions are being asked by serious citizens, like I've asked. If you go to Parliament now, it is manned by armed, uniformed, general service unit officers. And on that day, 25th, none was anywhere near Parliament. And that's where we then suffered. That somebody might have controlled the security and compromised the security of Parliament and allowed the invasion. And those are hard questions. I'll keep asking, even stating the same, even 10 years down the line. And the question you are asking, you should have asked from 25th, everybody should have asked. It is common knowledge that what was done was extraordinary. And the 13th Parliament should have instituted maybe a broad-based ad hoc committee, joint of Senate and the National Assembly, to critically examine the occurrences of 25th, because that is not going to be the end of public petition. Public petition and demonstration around Parliament ought to occur every day and every time. And processions and demonstration must be protected by the police. That is the law, and that is the Constitution. And so even with the upcoming finance bill, regardless of the outlook of it, if Kenyans will want to demonstrate, it is a provision in the Constitution, and it is the work of the police to protect demonstrators and genuine demonstrators, because the genuine demonstrators can be hijacked by criminals, and you end up having criminals executing crimes while you guys in the media still call it and protect them as demonstrators. The demonstration might have ended at Moi Avenue. And
Shouldn't all this you're talking about be part of a report with recommendations on how to counter that?
And Fred, and crooks and criminals might have hijacked, and that is why they invaded the Supreme Court. Okay. That is why they invaded and banned City Hall, and that is why they invaded Parliament, and with intention to ban Parliament. And so the thing is, Parliament naturally should have given us a report of their own.
Parliament doesn't have any report. No one else has a report as of now, apart from the UN Human Rights Council. They've already tabled their report before the Council in Geneva, talking about Kenya's deteriorating human rights record, which is worse, I think it's worst for the last 15 years or so. Isn't that enough to institute even an internal probe in Kenya, if the UN has already given us a report?
First, the danger with that I see is we end up with the one-sided story. You see, I don't have a problem with the UN Security Council or any other body out there. But when our parliament refuses to give their position clearly based on investigation, it leaves the space for one story. And you know the danger of one-sided story. It will always go with whatever the person out there is looking for. We needed to see the story from different angles. This is the angle of government, executive. This is the angle of parliament, who oversights the executive. This is the angle of the police. This is what the police say. And this is what the human rights bodies out there say. Then we are able to judge based on many stories that now everybody is able to say this might be true and this is not true. But now the story is out there, even as you're saying, all the way to the UN level. But internally, we don't even know what our story is as a country, because we have the bodies like Parliament who needed to have given us a position based on their responsibility as representative of the people, and they haven't given. So it makes it a bit more dangerous. But I also think we need to now question, Honorable Session, don't you think it is giving us the usual normal when we say there are thugs who usually hijacks demonstration. People like us who have been on those demonstrations feel that this is now supposed to end because it is the easiest way out. When government has meted people, its own people with force, extra force, and even some people get killed, we simply say demonstrations were hijacked. So when are we going to get out of this? You remember the days when, even the days when Raila was coming back and people were going to get him from the airport coming, and tear gas is falling all over, bullets are all over, and you want to say, these were hijacked. So it is always the easiest way out when we know as our responsibility as a government, we fail. We simply go and say, these were not demonstrations. So when is demonstration going to be demonstration in Kenya?
Okay.
Yes.
Respond to that.
And I think you need a straight answer. Yeah. Demonstrations are executed by specific persons who must give notice. And they must present petitions, and they are known people. And so they should define themselves and inform the police in good time. That is what is done. You don't just wake up one morning and we see vandalization of businesses, burning. That is not demonstration. And Article 37 of the Constitution is very clear. You demonstrate peaceably and unarmed. The moment tools or arms that can harm get into the hands of moving people, then they cease to be peaceful demonstration. I'm saying so as an organizer of demonstrations, and it can be hijacked actually for those who have other ulterior motives and misuse, particularly when the demonstrators are not clearly identified or nor unique. Like, for example, if teachers are walking from United Quarters, Mfangano Street to Parliament, yes, it will be distinct. They will be known they are teachers. And I would always tell them, can you make sure that nobody infiltrates you? You know yourself, you identify yourselves as teachers, and when you get to Parliament, this is how we are going to do, and this is how we are going to behave, and this is how we are going to execute our demonstration, so that you communicate the message clearly and hand over your petition. You don't walk into Parliament, break the walls, evacuate, chase members of Parliament out and starve out of Parliament, begin vandalizing and burning. That is criminal. And I think we should all, even as we ask other hard questions, let us also be balanced. Is the manner in which this was executed, was it legal and constitutional? The moment it is outside that, the moment it is criminal, let us call it criminal, if we are a serious country. And then we get down. What is the cure going into the future?
But those are the conversations we are not having, that's the concern.
On the cure.
Anwar, you have anything
because
to add on that?
as long as we don't promote confining our activities to lawful and constitutional means, then it means we are purely promoting anarchy. And we shouldn't promote anarchy, because tomorrow there will be more Kenyans who will want to
Thank
demonstrate.
you, Bwana Sossion.
I think the less we say about this issue and how how the state has chosen to respond to this, the better. The Kenya Court administration is now competing with the Moi administration in human rights violation and in just ensuring that Kenyans feel lesser Kenyans. And this is not fair. There are questions that we must ask, and that is why people do not want us to actually have this conversation. For example, we used about 18 billion shillings to put into place CCTVs across the country, manned, or rather across the city. They are manned by the police. There is a whole directorate. For short, it's always called IC3, the Integrated Communication, Command and Control Center. That particular system has got two sides to it. Of course, CCTV to the north and to the south. All of it, that particular system has got analytics layered to it. That in the morning, the people who are controlling that system should be able to know how many people are coming to town, but just by the number of the matatus that are coming in, and the any motorized and non-motorized. It has got analytics to that end. What happened to that system that morning that could not have helped the police to organize better? we cannot have excuses around that because we have got a police that is actually well-funded. Secondly, why did we have KDF officers already inside, outside of the mausoleum? They were inside Parliament precincts way before the gazetting that allowed them to come to the road. At the time that young man is being shot, the University of Nairobi student is being shot as he runs out of Parliament, at that particular point, KDF had not been sanctioned to come to the streets. Those are breaches that we need to talk about. Parliament knows exactly what it's doing. When people were coming out, what stopped the leadership of Parliament from meeting people outside and talking to them? It's a practice. Honorable Session has been in Parliament, and every time people would actually go to Parliament, either a certain committee or the leadership of Parliament, including the clerk, would go out and meet those young people. What also was the rush, seeing how the demonstrations had actually pushed and become octane? What was the rush with Parliament passing that law, killing our young people, and then the president withdrawing it? These are conversations we need to have, but because the people who died are nobody's children, we want to do politics with it. Because whereas the Constitution in Article 239 provides for a national police service, the political elites have actually decided to divide that force, or rather that unit into two. There is a national police service, the one that expedites issues to do with the politicians and others. That works very fast. I call that the National Police Service. And then there is the National Police Force, not in the Constitution, but that is what you meet when you go to the police station and you are an ordinary person. That is what you meet when you are out demonstrating, and instead of talking to you, they shoot you. So we want to get around this. And that's why when I saw the Director General of the National Intelligence the other day in Parliament, almost crying out on how the country is exposed and everything is around there, I laughed at it because Kenya has got the biggest defense budget in the region, yet it has got the smallest army. We have got the best financed police unit, yet we might not compete with the others. What exactly was the Director General doing speaking for KDF? You know, KDF wakes up in the morning and they find that they have got a new spokesperson speaking to the country about their weaknesses. How strategic was that communication? Those are some of those things that people are not bold to talk about. But from where I sit, Fred, I will tell you the truth. It's increasingly becoming difficult for politicians to actually budget corruption in the mainstream budget. So the best way for you to actually get money to play around, the money that you see going to churches, the money that you see playing politics, is to take it through the intelligence agencies. So when you saw him doing whatever he was doing, it was not so much about the security issues. It was actually, in my opinion, a man singing for his lunch, because once money goes to that particular end, then the political hands can actually have it. It isn't play around with that money.
All right. And I want us to now move the conversation to what the Kenyans should be talking about right now. And that's the budget-making process, the finance bill being part of that, even the allocations to different sectors as well. But with this gap, that there's no conclusion or there's no closure on what happened last year, is that the best environment to approach this budget-making process, given the fact that that was the genesis of the upheaval we had last year? Bwana Odele.
Thanks, Fred. I think the happenings of last year is definitely going to impact on the process of this year, simply because we ignored a lot of things, and we did not even interrogate the reason as to why so much happened. You know, June 25th was just the climax, but things started way earlier. Around this time last year, the groupings were already there. The civil societies were already taking Kenyans through the finance bill and looking at the clauses that they think will affect Kenyans economically, and they were out there. But you remember the arrogance. I remember some of the members of parliament, including Majority Whip, somewhere in Bometo somewhere, saying, nothing will change, not even a comma. But you know, people were also reflecting the previous year when the different groups went before the committee and gave their opinion, including more professional bodies advising, but nothing changed. So another year came, and you have members of parliament, especially those who have been given responsibility, like majority leader, majority whip, and all that. And we know how our parliament operates, Fred. Sometimes it is us versus them, and nobody wants to look at anything else. It is just, and we realized, and you know, because you are a media house, you've been even covering parliament, there are times when debate is not a debate in that parliament. The only thing is, the motion is tabled out there, and before you know it, Mr. Speaker put the question because I feel like my side have got numbers. So it has always just been numbers and no serious debate on what is affecting Kenyans either positively or negatively. So because Kenyans could also see that that house is not going to debate much of the things. And when they come out on the roof, sunroofs of the vehicle, they are also still telling you before the cameras that nothing will change, not even a comma will change. Then it leaves you with nothing else other than to fight. And this is what led us to all the way to June 20. But because we didn't do anything to rectify all that until now, and now the conversation has even metamorphosized to human rights issues. We even forgot that in the first instance, we were fighting for economic issues. Mm-hmm. Now we have a new year where it is going to, so I see in a larger extent, the last year is going to affect this year even more because it is now politics, human rights, and also the finance bill. Last year it was economic. We don't want more taxes. And that was the fight. Now this year, the fight is 3 times because we now have the issues of last year around human rights still on this. You are bringing a new finance bill. That it means the economic issues we discussed or we protested against last year might still be here. That is number 2. Then number 3, it has now taken a whole different political angle because arising from that, we have ended up with broad-based. Now, the issues of politics around broad-based is also here. So we are going to have 3 major issues in this year's finance.
With the lack of introspection on the part of Parliament, definitely a lot of what was called out by the younger Kenyans, the criticism that was directed towards Parliament, maybe hasn't changed. Now there are discussions even on the budget itself, forget even the finance bill, which they've paid a 2-page explainer on the dailies today. The National Assembly has done that, pages 14 and 15 about the finance bill. But even about the budgetary allocations alone, on an issue like a sector like education, budget cuts, serious budget cuts that affect free primary capitation, junior secondary capitation, senior secondary capitation, exam and invigilation, school feeding program, quality assurance, modernization of chemists that amount to about 72 billion shillings. These are conversations that we should be having. Do you think the environment currently, without thinking about what happened last year, is conducive enough to have a proper conversation?
Of course, it's very conducive because as a country, we must bite the bullet and face our issues. If we don't face our issues, then we are not a serious country. And the finance bill of 2025-2026 is a complete departure from the various previous finance bills because it doesn't propose new taxation, but rather it recalibrates the tax regimes so that it can effectively mobilize and raise revenue. And so it shouldn't invite any public confrontation or outcry. And on the appropriation bill itself, how it has been appropriated to the various projects and programs in the State Department is a matter that is still under process because it will go through, all these proposals will go through public participation. The committees will further examine them, committees of the House. Further amendments will still be made. And then what we call the Committee of Supplies of the House will still examine. The recommendations of the budget cuts across the State Departments is one action of ensuring austerity measures and prudent use of resources. Because if you overshoot the ceilings as has been provided, then it means you must generate another finance bill and that you must impose more taxation. So I think this is a delicate balance. But then if we talk about the state departments specific, it's very easy to tell the country that parents are not going to pay, parents are going to begin paying examination fee. That's a general statement. It is not a government policy, and that is prejudicing the process of budget making. There are obvious things that the state will not do. And if I talk about the State Department of Basic Education, the financing of exams will still be a responsibility of government. And capitation and free learning will still be a responsibility of the state. Hiring and deployment of more teachers will still be a responsibility of the state. There will definitely be austerity effects within the sector, as it is going to affect all other sectors, but not to claw out the most delicate and the most vital investment programs in that area that guarantees access to quality and free education. And I'm sure the president is very alive to that. It's part of the agenda. So it is not going to be a very easy appropriation bill for all state departments, because what the appropriation is all about is austerity measures. What is it that is not vital that must be eliminated? And how can resources be transferred to priority areas? So indeed, to me, this is going to be the most serious priority project. Okay. A program that is going to attract resources is going to be a program that is vital by all means. So it is not going to be an easy work. When there are challenges with the finance bill, then there are also challenges at the appropriation level. Okay. And that is what we need to live as a country, so that we have a budget that is financed by the taxes, while at the same time we should be able to undertake various development programs in the country. And don't forget, Fred, the better agenda of revitalizing agriculture, revitalizing MSMEs, revitalizing ICT infrastructure, advancing the housing agenda, which has taken shape very well.
And that's okay, at least that has been communicated.
UHC and all that will still need to be financed. We need to do all this without overtaxing Kenyans. And I think this is a year that Kenyans should celebrate, that the taxation burden is not being transferred on them.
Arnold, last year, part of the problem that many Kenyans said was how government communicates these issues. If at all the intention is to ensure there are austerity measures, do you feel that has been communicated enough? Secondly, you talked about how probably the scare tactics have worked on Kenyans, and you foresee that this time around the conversations may not be as robust as they were last year. Do you see that as a risk, that probably Kenyans may be a bit reluctant to engage in this discussion around the budget-making process?
Well, fair enough. Fred, for most of my adult life, actually for almost all, except for a short stint of about 2-3 years, I have worked for young people for almost all of my adult life, for and with young people until this age. And I know one thing, that I've been engaging these young people, and as you speak to both those who are there, those who still have got a hope of going out, and generally the space that will be engaging in the conversation around this, the violence meted on young people really left them with a lot of psychological scars. Even as Parliament plays around and not wanting to probably bring a closure to this issue, there is also the other impact that has actually left. When you meet a lot of those young people, they've got a lot of psychological scars. Those who were abducted, those who know their friends that they were with and went down, and the state appears to just gloss over that issue. So it's definitely not going to allow these young people to have that conversation the way they did last year. But like I mentioned, that movements do mutate. Now, generally, not just those young people, but literally any other person who wants to have this conversation, they now know that for purposes, if you're going to speak, you have got these as implications. So anyone who comes out to actually have this conversation will know through and through what exactly they are walking into. And that is why when I saw a magistrate talking to Boniface Mwangi the other day, that is, of course, a brotherly advice, and outside of that pressings, my heart actually sank. Because whereas that was a very brotherly conversation, and where somebody is actually thinking about you, I thought about the oath of honor that the police actually take when they actually are graduating. They pledge allegiance to the Constitution. Actually, constitutionalism is mentioned twice in that particular oath of honor that they take. The rule of law is also emphasized. Keeping peace. Those are the things that they actually work on. But if you see how this conversation has actually gone around, then you realize that there are a few challenges that we're going to have. Number one, of course, Parliament has improved how it communicates. It's made it very deliberate to go out and break it down. But you know, this document is normally not coming from Parliament. The Parliamentary Budget Office is one of the most efficient institutions we're going to meet, or rather departments we're going to meet when it comes to budget making. The guys at Treasury sometimes are very corny on how they actually communicate. You're not going to find a lot of good communication coming to them. Yet, normally they are the places where these issues are actually coming from. So, having said that, do you know that the Finance Bill 2024-2025 was actually passed in phases? And that what we have now is actually just the same thing now, actually being now brought in officially, but it had been passed in phases. To the very issues that people complained about last year that led to the impasse that we saw have not gone away. In any case, they've actually been turbocharged. The impunity is back. Opulence is back. There is zero austerity if you look at the proposals. What they've only done is that they've changed the way of communicating those numbers. If you look at the Office of the President, now they break it into smaller bits, and therefore now you cannot see that it's all going under one person who, the AIE holder is just going to be one person controlling all that. But now it's broken down in a way that you might not have that bigger figure. So literally nothing has been done. We've gone back to the very, very issues and the very, very place where we were last year before the demonstration. So there is no learning, there is no changing. The only thing that is here is that austerity is only meant for Kenyans and people who are in the lower cadres of the administration. But upwards, there is no austerity, zero austerity. Within the Office of the President, nothing like austerity. In some instances, actually, the budgets have actually gone higher. But then people down here, you throw a few crumbs for the politicians, the people in Parliament, because they're part and parcel of the budget-making process. Those ones are normally bribed by way of CDF and RMLF. Those are just crumbs. And then they look away, and then, of course, the executive has got its way. So there is a continuity of impunity as was last year. The only thing is that there has been a lot of fear sold to people and the public, and some lazy attempt at communicating differently. Otherwise, there is no... For example, Institution has been on this for a very long time. I know deep down he knows. It's not hard for us to actually breach the deficit in teacher numbers. It's not hard. If you look at how we use money in this country, it's not hard. At the moment, I think TSC says they need about roughly about 100 billion shillings to actually work out that the deficit that is around that. It's not difficult if you see how we are using money and how we are spending money. I saw the other day people a proposal of having a study on the housing program. If you look at that money, in fact, Professor Menya was saying that if you are to pay every architect we have in this country today $1 million shillings, you will still pay every architect to do that particular thing and still keep a lot of money and still be left with over 3 billion shillings. Mm-hmm. So the way we waste money around here, in this budget, there is no departure. There is completely no departure in the way we actually do things and the way we run budget. So, of course, people are going to think of better ways of handling this issue, because the political class has completely refused to move on. And they just want to mutate around, go play around with these issues, but they don't want to handle issues as they were. Because the pain in the pockets is still there. Just because people are scared doesn't mean that the cost of living has actually been worked out. Businesses are still struggling. The businesses are closing out and everything around that. So let's not act that scare tactics alone can make the conditions, or rather can change the way we are doing things.
Okay. Bonodede, what's your assessment of this attempt at austerity? Because it's not been communicated as such. Now we are seeing 65 billion shillings slash in the health sector, 72 billion in the education sector, affecting very crucial services, capitation for free primary and and secondary schools. Surely, Kenyans are going to feel this. Do you agree that this is a proper way to achieve austerity?
Fred, if we are talking about austerity, of course it is true we need some austerity. But the question is, where exactly do Kenyans think that austerity should be implemented? Is it at the core of what they need, or at some extras that maybe Parliament and executive spends? Because you don't want to tell me, I saw on one of the media houses, the PS in charge of basic education before the parliamentary departmental committee or something, talking about, the question is being asked, why did you take away the exams money? So why are we even saying education is free? So we want to take children to school, learn, and not do exams. Or what are we talking about? So the question is not whether austerity is bad or not bad. Austerity is good, that is agreed across. But where exactly do we put that austerity? In the things, you remember before even that finance bill of last year, it started by maybe the travels of the president. It was being calculated each and every time. And it got to a point where president flying out was not an issue anymore. Everybody said, and people even joked, that he came to visit us. He is now going back home because we didn't know where his home was. If that was a noise and we saw the reduction of that, I mean, that is a good austerity, yeah? Because at some point, coming into the space of finance bill, there was a time he didn't even go out for 2-3 months, and people were like, this is what we were talking about. And nowadays he goes, but not the way he used to go. What if that was the first point of austerity, coming to ministers and a few others, including parliamentarians? Then we have to maintain our health budget, because ideally we are supposed to fund our health budget maybe at 80%, because we see what is happening out there. When Trump just did one stroke of a pen, we saw how many people have lost jobs even at the grassroots in Kenya and other countries like Kenya. So it means our health budget, ideally we should have it at 60 or 70% funded by us. But then we go to papers in the morning, health budget reduced by 67 billion. We go to education, the most important things, because when you take power, we want health, education, and food on the table. So for me, the government should now a little bit refocus on where to put that austerity. It is not just about going to the budget and slashing everything that you think will give you the figures. Let's just take austerity where it is supposed to be. We have seen people like Senator Edwin Sifuna and a few others. Of course, during that time, the likes of Maliba thought it was a lie. I think today you might have a different opinion. When he was talking about the mileage they are given. You remember that story in the floor of Parliament. You are given money, even the money you didn't even want. I mean, you don't even think it is important. But there is where we Kenyans need to be happy to see that we have actually taken austerities, and this is how even parliamentarians will work, and this is how the executive will work. So if it comes to us, the people, we feel like, okay, everybody needs to take a little bit of a pitch. Parliamentarians have taken it here, executive have taken it there. and now it is our turn as the people, maybe let's take it here. Okay. But whenever we speak about austerity in this, our budget, it only comes to us as the people, and you don't see where exactly Parliament is taking that austerity. You don't see exactly that austerity in the executive.
All right. Yeah. That's as far as the budget making process is concerned, and those are the conversations surrounding the appropriations bill, as well as the finance bill, which I've said the National Assembly has taken a step and paid for space on the dailies 2 pages of an explainer on the Finance Bill 2025. These are the conversations that will continue. I want us to talk about something else that has dominated the front pages today. Most of the papers are talking about the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. He is set to unveil his party today. It is there on the front page of the Daily Nation. Gachagua rattles opposition talks. On the Star, Gachagua unveils party today. I think it's also there on the front page of the People Daily about Gachagua's plan to unveil his political party. Which will it be? And why are we so interested in this? Bwana Sosion, I've been talking about the prospect of an opposition alliance and what that portends for the country. But we do have a story as well. Let's watch the story as a precursor to the conversation.
Just days after parting ways with UDA, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is poised to chart a new political course on Thursday. He is expected to officially unveil his new political outfit, the Democracy for the Citizens Party (CPC), a bold move that his allies say will teach President William Ruto a lesson for betraying the Mount Kenya region.
UDA, and especially in Mount Kenya region, it will be left as a shell in terms of membership. I can tell you 99% will move out and they will decamp to the new party. That is the shock that they are going to experience.
The new party, registered early this year, uses a near and a hand as its symbols, with its slogan Skiza wa Kenya, loosely translated Listen to Kenyans, will be led by Gachagua as a party leader. Former UDA Secretary General Cleophas Malala will serve as a deputy party leader, while Kajiado Senator Seki Lenku will be the new party chairman. Nyandarua Senator John Methu will be the party's new Secretary General.
This is not a village party. This is a national party which will have what we call a national outlook. And this is what we are expecting tomorrow. I am sure tomorrow's meeting, the national team will be unfurled so that Kenyans can be able to know who are they and do they bring the image of the Kenya image.
The unveiling of the new party, complete with officials, is likely to trigger by-elections in the larger Mount Kenya region, where party officials, among them Senator Methu, are expected to resign from UDA and vie on the new party in a by-election that will be used to test the party's popularity and consolidate the Mount Kenya region.
This is not the party that people have been always saying Wamonyoro is tribal. There is nothing like tribal here. This is a national party, and I can assure Kenyans Wamonyoro is not tribal. Wamonyoro was uniting his base, because you cannot unite the country before starting from home.
Already, the new party has tasked former Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi to spearhead the Bere North by-election campaigns, where a fierce face-off is expected between Gachagua and Deputy President Kithure Kindiki. Gachagua will be using the new party to negotiate with his opposition colleagues as a race to pick the opposition flag bearer gathers pace.
Nao wanaomba Mungu ati tukosane na nyinyi muombe Mungu tukae pamoja. Munaona kama Mungu atasikiza nani?
Allies of Gachagua have further accused President Ruto of orchestrating the registration of multiple new parties in the region, a move they perceive as a calculated strategy to fragment and weaken Mount Kenya's political unity. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Yes, Rigathi Gachagua, definitely the man of the day if we go by the dailies. On the front page of the People Daily, it says it's battle royale as Gachagua unveils party. And we have an image of the president and his former deputy there, dominating most of the front pages today. Bwana Sosion, a lot that has happened over the past few months, culminating in the impeachment of the president, or the deputy president appear to have completely lionized Rigathi Gachagua. Do you see this, the unveiling of a party, as a further problem for the president?
I don't think Gachagua has been lionized anyway, because he's speaking from Mount Kenya, nowhere else. Speaking from Wamunyoro village. And Kenya is not Wamunyoro village. Kenya is Kenya, and it is a territory or a republic of over 42 ethnic communities. While it is within the right of anybody to form a political party, join a political party, I don't think anything around Gachagua is anything to take so seriously, because this is a man whose political thinking as philosophy, the substratum, is founded on hate and the fact that he was impeached. He was impeached by Parliament, and unanimously by huge numbers within Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. And so he should be grappling with the impeachment charges in which he was found guilty. And so, to me, any logically thinking Kenyan who believes in transparent democratic governance cannot be attracted to such an arrangement. And you see, it is always very easy when people have a perceived common enemy to try and coalesce. And this is what we are seeing. It is not any different from the NASA coalition, which was staged. It was so artificial, but still it could not penetrate the democratic judgment or nor overturn the democratic judgment of the people of Kenya. So let anybody with a political party and with intentions, if you even listen to the words that Rigathi Gachagua is using, is even out of the context of normal, ordinary politics. It's bitterness of the highest order, and the words are very uncivil and not ordinary in any way. So really, this will be a political party of headed by an impeached, bitter loser, and there is no other political philosophy within that kind of arrangement, and that is not going to change anything. I think what is important at the moment, to me, within the Kenya Kwanza alliance and arrangement, the president should not be distracted by these activities. Those who want to do whatever...
Even when his own party is weakening?
No. I don't think the party is not getting weakened by any standards. It's not getting
A lot of people have left the party, UDA.
No, it is not getting weakened. The philosophy remains strong, and the better agenda remains in place, and the president should be more bothered with transforming agriculture, MSME, ICT, housing, delivering housing, UHC. I think that is what the president should be able to push. The president should not be distracted by these political comedy that is happening around.
To dismiss this as inconsequential, the formation of a new party by Rigathi Gachagua?
Of course, anyone who knows how our politics works out knows that today is quite significant, because about 17% of Kenya's population comes from Mount Kenya. And that, in itself, of course, translates to votes. And Mount Kenya is one of those very politically woke regions where the voters there mobilize in good numbers. They are very civically engaged. So you can't wish away what Gachagua is doing today and what his party... but this is the nightmare scenario that the impeachment did not foresee. Because everyone was told that Gachagua would actually dissipate and go out of circulation within 2 weeks. That was the currency that informed the gusto with which the impeachment was done. That once we send away this man, within 2 weeks he'll be forgotten and gone. He is actually lived to come and haunt the people who thought that way. And today, a number of pro-William Ruto members of parliament from Mount Kenya are really worried. Some of them have actually decided not to run, like Wamumbi, for example, coming from Madira. He's decided he will not seek another term. So this is quite significant because, again, I'm trying to think, look at ODM on the other side. Of course, somebody will say that you do away with Rigathi Gachagua and replace him with Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga, the person, came into BBG. The 10-point agenda that they signed at KICC has nothing to do with them forming a coalition. All of us in our mind, of course, we know that there is a partnership. But somehow Raila Odinga with a few people came and joined William Ruto. But the base, the ODM base, has never moved to government. And that is why you actually now, for the first time, find sentiments that you wouldn't hear from Raila Odinga. Long time ago, not long time ago, until BBG, policy direction, ideological direction, even programmatic level within ODM, Raila will not have to come out and explain anything. You will see it self-enforcing. Now, today we have got opposing voices. The supporter, the Raila Odinga supporter, the ODM supporter, has remained where they were in 2022. A few leaders, of course, have come to BBG. And that's why now you find now Raila Odinga going out to explain things that Raila last explained 20 years ago. He's now going back to explain, okay, we are not here, we are not with them, Sifuna usikue chungu sana. That is not the Raila Odinga of old. He will not have to take time to explain himself. And that also speaks to the dent that William Ruto has actually done to, number one, to the person of Raila Odinga, and then to the party that is ODM. So, whatever way you look around, no one can actually wish Gachagua away. He's actually going to be a serious problem to the president of the day, or rather to the president's aspiration of having a second term. And by the way, Rigathi is a first-term MP who became a deputy president. He is likely to become the first person who forms a party shortly and makes a president, a Kenyan president, a one-term president. I know that is one thing that people really don't want to talk about, especially the people who are supporting government, but the reality of a one-term presidency is so real. Because almost 50% of William Ruto's votes were from Mount Kenya. Mm-hmm. So you can't say that you lost 50%, you have no plan on how to reduce that. They have underinvested, politically underinvested in Western Kenya, for example, persecuted people from Western Kenya. And then you hope somehow that a miracle will happen. And we are at a dispensation where you cannot rig elections. The post-2010 setting, and the many times we've gone to the Supreme Court, if it were easy to rig elections, it would have been so easy for Uhuru Kenyatta, being the president then, to simply find ways of working around the 233,000 votes that actually made the difference. So it's not as easy as people want to actually push it. Okay. And this is not a scenario they actually foresaw.
Yes. The president watching this unfolding and the fact that it would appear his only rival back then was Raila Odinga. Now they're on the same side, but something else is forming outside. That should worry him because of the kind of traction it's attracting, even if just going by the headlines today.
Thank you. Politically, yes, there will be a dent on President William Ruto's numbers based on what he got in 2022 against his main rival, Raila Odinga. Once Rigathi bolts out and collects, even if it is not 100% votes from Mount Kenya, there is definitely a dent in President William Ruto's basket of 2022. But now the question is the president able to find a replacement for that vote? Because once that vote is gone, it's gone. So there is no need him crying over it over and over. He just needs to find a way of replacing that vote. And I think that is what him and probably his kitchen cabinet political group might be working on. But two things stands out for me, Fred. Looking at this from a neutral point of view, I would say, number one, our politics is not changing. The truth is, we are not changing. We are still going ethnic, and we are going even bigger. As we try to keep changing it and saying, oh, it doesn't matter who the other person is, we are just seeing the same kind of politics we've seen before, because Wamunyoro himself is telling all the leaders he's trying to work with to work on the ethnic numbers, and that does not give us a new vibe, which we would say, oh, this is now a unique moment, it's a new thing. If he meets Matiang'i, he's saying, give me 2.5 million from Kisii community. He doesn't see Matiang'i as someone who can get a vote anywhere else. If he meets Kalonzo, he says, give me 4 million from Cumberland. He just sees Kalonzo is only able to garner votes from Cumberland and nowhere else. And himself, he says, Kama Mrima, we will give 6 million. He also knows he can't get votes anywhere else outside Murima. And he meets other leaders, and that is the vibe. So as a young Kenyan, does this give me any new vibe that would make me feel so happy that there's a new thing coming on board? I don't think it is. So second one, you would look at their separation with President William Ruto. He is the man who went all 100% telling us who William Ruto is. Some of us didn't vote William Ruto. Myself, I didn't vote William Ruto. But Rigathi was all out there convincing Kenyans and doing all that. And then turning around to tell us how William is bad. So the question, if I have a brain, which I believe I have, the question would be, who says now you are telling me the truth? Because you lied to me then and told me how William Ruto was good. Now you are turning around telling me how William Ruto is bad. So what would make me think now you are telling me the truth, then you are lying? Right. You lied once, you can lie again. Then the last one is the voting pattern of Mount Kenya has been sending someone home, not sending people into the office. They always send someone home. And that someone in the recent past has been Raila Odinga. So today, you also want to recruit me into sending William Ruto home and not minding who are we sending into the office, because that is what has held Kenya for a long time. We vote to send other people home, not minding who comes into the office.
2 minutes each for your final comments.
That is a very stale argument.
You'll get your 2 minutes.
Very stale.
So
2 minutes only, Bwana Sossion.
No, it's true. I agree with him. The ecosystem here that is being created by Rigiji is an ecosystem of very vengeful hate politics rooted in ethnicity. That really we want that leader of that ethnic group, this one and this one, then we form a team and throw out.
But the president is doing the same.
One person, and throw out one person. Allow me. And after throwing out that one person, you're not telling us who will go there, and you're not giving us even the vision and the philosophy of the next governance. I think what the president has done, he has outgrown all these ethnic arrangements, and he has built a philosophy which is underpinned by the broad-based government to bring all communities together and drive the country transformatively. And I am sure that is the most attractive package, even in Mount Kenya. And we have seen some of the closest friends of Rigathi Gachagua running away because they are feeling now this is not making any sense. And the people of Mount Kenya, we saw how they received the president. They voted the president, not via Gachagua. Gachagua does not own the people of Mount Kenya in his pockets. The people of Mount Kenya are independent people who can analyze situations and discern what is happening. And they know the government of President William Ruto, they are part of it for the whole journey up to 2032. Okay. So all these others are simply jilted, bitter, inconsequential individuals without any political philosophy that advances the democracy of this country. In fact, it's a backward philosophy, which I don't think even Mount Kenya themselves will buy.
Thank you, Bwana Sossion. Arnold.
Just quickly, looking at the arrangement today, let me use my 2 minutes to talk about how today looks like. Number one, you can call Rigathi Gachagua tribal. What Rigathi Gachagua says on top of vehicles and on pulpits is what William Ruto practices in policy. You don't need to struggle. Besides, if there was no BBG, for example, there would be little indifference, at least in practice. Gachagua is in theory because he doesn't have executive power. The president is in practice, he's doing the same. So today we can actually call Gachagua tribal. But can you look at the constitution of parastatals, specifically the MDs and the executives of parastatals? Can you look even at the PSS? As in, it's clear. So what Rigathi Gachagua says, the president does. So who here is actually, there is no one between the two of them that can actually say that they are better than the other one. Secondly, President William Ruto had actually made an attempt to move us from the politics of identity and put us to politics of issues. And that's where the Hustler versus dynasty had come in. And you actually see he's gone back. He's building up small chieftains from different ethnic blocks. Everywhere, he's now creating. And they think, by the way, the people in the system really believe that ethnicity would be the deciding factor in the next election. So they are busy telling Luos, okay, now you can feel comfortable. And you tell Luyas, you can feel comfortable if you come and bring us your leaders. As in everywhere, they are trying to create ethnic lords and then coming up with a conclave of ethnic lords that will then determine the next election. What probably they don't know is that Kenyans already moved past that, and it's not going to change. So, and when you see somebody talk about, okay, Rigathi Gachagua lied in the last election, and now that we are here today, as in, when he told you he was forming one government, it's the same government that kicked him out, and because he did that, apparently he should stay there. All Kenyans, for example, elected somebody, and so many Kenyans want to send people home. Why aren't we telling Kenyans, you told us and you voted somebody in 2022, why are you changing them in 2027?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Arnold. Finally, Meshach, the 2 minutes.
I don't think it is in Maliba's place to tell us this, because once you come out and tell people how this government works, you must give yourself a period of time to convince us why you think it is not working. So some of us who did not vote
He was part of the government.
Yes, some of us who did not vote William Ruto still says until today, some of the things you are now busy telling us, we knew in 2022, and that is why we didn't even vote him. So tell us something new, something very, very new now. Thank you.
All right. Definitely the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, back on the front pages today. It's battle royale as Gachagua unveils party. That's the People Daily. Gachagua rattles opposition talks. That's a Daily Nation. And on the Star, Gachagua unveils party today. Quite a big conversation. This will be coming your way probably in the next hour or so. Yep. So those are the headlines, and I'd want to thank my panelists this morning, beginning with Meshach Odede, political commentator, Wilson Sosion, who has served as SG for KNUT and also as a member of the National Assembly, and Arnold Maliba, party leader, Progress Plus Alliance. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time at TV47 this morning. After the break, we switch gears and talk about matters mental health. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and Odida will be having a huge panel in studio for that discussion. Let's do this again tomorrow morning. My name is Freddy Ndimuli.